Hey, welcome back guys. So this is video number 2 in our series on eccentric lifting. So remember, eccentric lifting is where the muscles are lengthening under load. So in most cases, like a squat or a bench press and things like that, that's where the bar is coming towards you. But there are going to be some lifts where the eccentric phase is a little bit different. So here we've got Naomi's going to be demonstrating on a lat pull down. This is actually what the eccentric phase is now going to be, where the bar is going up away from her, because that's where the lats and everything else are lengthening under the load. So this video is primarily going to be about using slow eccentrics in your training. Now, different eccentric timings will have different benefits in different scenarios. So the first one that we're going to go over is just what we call like a super slow eccentric. Basically, anywhere between 10 and 20 seconds would fall into that category. And the main benefit that we're going to get out of this is motor learning and coordination. So this is something that you generally use with like beginners to help teach them a new lift and get them controlling that new lift well. Outside of that, the loading is probably going to be so low that you're not going to get a lot of hypertrophy and things like that. So this is mainly a teaching tool for people with new lifts or people who don't have great motor control. So Naomi's going to set up here on the lat pull down. She's actually got her phone set up on the right there, and she's going to perform 15-second eccentrics. Okay, so she's just going to demonstrate what that actually looks like. So the concentric is performed normally, and then the eccentric phase, where the bar is traveling up and the muscles are stretching under load, is performed in around 15 seconds. We don't want to be too dogmatic with that, but we want to, as long as they're within a couple of seconds each side, that's absolutely fine. But this is how slow a 15-second eccentric should be. Now, Naomi's using a phone here because if you get most people to try and time the eccentric whilst they're under load, even if the load is quite light, 99% of the time they're going to end up going way too fast. So it really helps if they can have a stopwatch or a phone or something like that, at least at first when they start using these methods, so they can get a real feel for what those tempos actually feel like. So if we just watch Naomi just do a couple more, if you don't mind doing one or two more, Naomi. And basically the whole time what we'd be cueing this person to do would be to be in complete control of the lift at all times. So if I were to say stop at any moment during the eccentric phase, Naomi should be able to stop the bar dead at that point. The other thing that we'd be watching for is that the bar speed is pretty much the same all the way through the range of motion. What we don't want to see is, say, good control at the bottom, where perhaps it's easier to control, and then speeding up at the top where the tension is harder to maintain, because that shows that we're not coordinating that part of the lift as well. So we want to, within that 15 seconds, we want to see the same tempo all the way throughout the lift. Bringing the speed down now, or quickening it up, we would do, like, say, a regular slow eccentric would be something we'd class anywhere from like 6 to 10 seconds. Now, when we're using these kind of tempos, the main thing we're going to be looking for is an increased hypertrophy response. The loads are going to be a bit lower because at the end of the day, the slower tempo is going to make it more difficult. But as we discussed in video 1, you get most of your muscle damage and your mTOR signaling in the eccentric phase of the lift. So even though the load is lower, the fact that you're spending more time in the eccentric part of the lift is going to make up for the fact that the load is lower, and you're still going to get a good hypertrophy response. The other benefit here is that now that the load is heavy enough, we're still going to get some tendon strengthening effects, even though the loads aren't extremely heavy. So Naomi's just going to demonstrate. Let's go 6 seconds on these. So what a 6-second eccentric would look like on the lat pull down there. So again, we're looking for the same cues, that she's able to maintain good muscle tension throughout the entire lift, and also that the tempo stays the same throughout the entire range of motion. We don't want to see the bar speeding up. On this lift, on the lat pull down, for example, if you're going to see it, it will generally be in the top half of the movement where the muscles are stretched more and it's harder to maintain muscle tension. So the next eccentric tempo that we're going to look at is just what we would refer to as a controlled eccentric. So basically what we're looking to have the lifter do is just perform the eccentric a couple of seconds slower than they would under a normal heavy load. So if you've got someone who's quite an explosive lifter, that might just be, say, 3 or 4 seconds on the eccentric. If you've got someone who's a slower lifter, a bit more of a grinder, it might be, say, 5 or 6 seconds on the way down. But the idea is just that it's a couple of seconds slower than what their normal tempo would be with a heavy load. Now, when we're using this method, say in the 4 to 6 second range, the loads are going to be higher now. So we're probably working in the 80 to 90% range. Once we progress to this range, then we are going to get a lot of benefit in terms of tendon strengthening, in terms of hypertrophy, and also a more direct carryover to our ability to control heavy loads. So what we're going to have Naomi do now is just demonstrate on the bench press what a controlled eccentric looks like for her. Naomi's a reasonably slow lifter, so she's going to do, say, 4 or 5 seconds on the way down. We're just going to look at what that's going to look like for a couple of reps here. A bit slower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So just go one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and rack it. Thank you. Okay. So that's what that kind of tempo would look like. Usually we'd be working in a like 3 to 5 rep range. So this is a good method to be using kind of in the intensification phase of your program, maybe before you start really ramping things up and things start getting really heavy. Now, the other method that we use then a bit further on would be what we call contrast sets. So when we do a contrast set, what we do is alternate between a reasonably slow or controlled eccentric, like Naomi just demonstrated then, and what we class as a normal rep. So the idea here is that what we're trying to do is transfer the control and stability that we create during the slower eccentric rep, and then translate that to the faster rep, which is the tempo that we'd use when we're normally lifting heavy. So what Naomi's going to do here, she's going to do 4 reps. Reps 1 and 3 are going to have, say, a 5 or a 6 second eccentric on the way down. And then reps 2 and 4 are going to be performed how she would perform a maximal rep. So this one's going to be nice and slow. That's it. And now lift the tempo you would if it was a maximal rep. Up, and then slow again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then normal tempo. Perfect. And rack it. So again, the benefit of that is we're taking, say, the neurological benefits that we get from controlling on the slower eccentric and teaching ourselves how to maintain that tension then when we go back to a faster speed. So that again is something that you could use in an even later stage of training when things are even heavier again, so the 90 to 100% range, to start getting you not just controlling the heavier weights, but also being able to move them a little bit quicker.